when the mind is believed, when thoughts are believed to be connected to this character, it will come up with an unending checklist of things that it says will make it whole or happy. So those things start off with objects outside the self: money, success, cars, houses, jobs, relationships, any sort of external events that are happening. And those never bring true happiness. And you're free to pursue them, to find out. But if there's an honest looking and an understanding in terms of these patterns, there was a moment in time earlier when the mind made a promise: oh, if we get to this place, then everything will be better. And here we are. And then one could say, well, I've evolved, I've changed, and so have my tastes and my interests. And yes, the character and the illusion has evolved, it has made these changes, but what you truly are hasn't changed. It remains. It wasn't born. It never dies. It just is. And the interesting thing is that there may come a point when it's seen, oh, the money, the success, all those things that have been named, those don't create happiness, because they don't. And even when it is said that it creates peace or a feeling of safety, even that is false. That's another story from the mind. And the reason is that there are plenty of times when when there's a wish that arises, someone wishes for something to be the case, and then they get it. And there might be peace for a little bit, but then the worrying starts. Well, how do I maintain this? Now that I have all this money, how do I keep it? Now that I have this relationship, how do I keep it? Now that I've convinced this person to love me, how do I, keep the ruse going? The mind keeps moving the goalpost. It keeps making the checklist of items, and as soon as they get checked off, more get added. Might not always be the case, but it seems to be the case a lot. Now what happens is, then there's this discovery of something more going on here. What is? Maybe it's called non-duality, maybe it's called something else. But it's realized that those external things, that the success, the money, the status, the blah, 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 is just a bunch of BS, and that it doesn't bring true peace, it doesn't bring wholeness. And there might even be this feeling of, I've got one over. Well, the mind is the thing that's saying, oh, we've got one over. It's the one that's thinking that it's saying, it's basically saying, hey, we haven't fallen for that trick, or we're finally, the ruse is up. We're not falling for that anymore. But then the checklist starts for awakening and post-awakening and this sort of standing, this resting in awareness. But the checklist starts with, yeah, but questions. Well, yeah, okay, I believe that I understand that I'm not a separate person, but, and the checklist just comes in the form of questions arising. See that the checklist of those, yeah, I'll fully surrender, I'll fully allow everything to be as it is, and I will allow this awakening thing to happen if this question is answered, if this thing is reconciled, if I get this and this and this. Can you see how that checklist is no different than I'll finally be happy when I have X, Y, and Z. It's all the same. And in that way, this aspect, this seeking, this search for awakening, search for enlightenment, can be its own spiritual trap. It can be its own sort of game that's being played that has the apparent separation between this, the character, and what is. And there never is any sort of separation. It's as if the last the last wall, the last bump to cross over is these elements of logic, these intellectual arguments that take place. And a lot of them are seen. There's a lot of messages. It brings up love. Like, can't you just be cool with the fact that you realize that happiness wasn't in stuff and events? I mean, can't you just be okay with that? And yet, you just sort of cruise along. Think of the money that you save not pursuing the purchase of stuff and life experiences and knocking things off a bucket list. And there's nothing wrong with having experiences or even having stuff. But the placement of importance upon their achievement to get happiness, to feel wholeness, is a trick. It's a trap. It'll never, ever get you there. It'll never, ever get you there. And if you get something and it makes you happy, look at the last event that brought happiness. And look at how long, truly, be honest with how long that lasted before the mind moved the goalpost again. True acceptance, true allowance has nothing to do with the achievement of those goals. That true peace that is felt, that real happiness. It's not even happiness, it's a peace, it's a wholeness. It's common, I just want to be happy, I just want to be free from suffering, but that allowance is the freedom for all of those things to come up. And that even includes a desire of, I want this external thing. That even includes the thought arising that might make me happy. And that even includes the apparent suffering when that thing is held out of reach or not achieved or acquired and then lost again. That's all it as well. I read a passage this morning from Ramana Maharshi, and it was, after realization, all intellectual loads should be seen as useless burdens and tossed overboard. And I thought that was great. After realization, all intellectual loads should be seen as useless burdens and tossed overboard. And then the irony that comes with the fact that even the sentence itself is an intellectual load. There's words, it's a great pointer. But the beauty of this message of everything these attempts to be talked to, these attempts that are made to put words to this, in many ways end up being the very thing that they say that they're not. And oftentimes this checklist on the other side of, let's call it the other side of understanding, that it's not the stuff and the events and the experiences that we want to have or that we think that will make us happy, the checklist just becomes these intellectual loads, these intellectual things, questions that need answers to be reconciled. And it's all the same. They're all just thoughts arising. After realization, all those intellectual loads can be tossed, but they're just not even accepted as useful. So they don't really even need to be tossed because they're not arising as something that's important. In the same way that, This message is such a bummer for if you're trying to live your best life and you're running around thinking that you're getting after it and doing all these things and crushing life. I mean, this message is worthless, and that's what makes it so amazing. It's completely pointless, but it's beautiful in that. Because we don't need anything else. Nothing else is needed. And you're free to feel like you need stuff to be happy. And that's not it, and yet it is it at the same time. The mind will keep creating the checklist. It'll keep coming up with the things. Oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But now, maybe I should get this whole thing figured out. And that's okay. This is not a knock on the checklist. This is not a knock on questions arising and with the feeling, the energetic feeling that there need to be answers. This is not a knock on wanting something to play out. But the wholeness that is sought, the wholeness that you seek, the peace that is sought, is not in those things. It's not in the checking of the boxes on that list. It's in the acceptance that checklists may happen and checks may happen or not, and that's totally fine. And one could say that in the full acceptance of those lists being okay to happen, with checks happening or not happening, then maybe the list doesn't get as long. Maybe there is no list. Maybe it starts to get shorter and shorter and shorter until there's just being, which is why we're here. We're here to be. That's it. We're not here to make checklists and check them off. And maybe we are. Maybe that's part of it too. But that's not where wholeness is found. That's not where peace is found. So make lists, check them off. We seek until we don't. We make lists and check things off until we don't. But the mind will continue to do it no matter what. You can believe in what it's coming up with and what it's saying. And that includes, when we get these things taken care of, then we'll find happiness, then we'll find peace. Or you can simply see those things as thoughts arising and realize and recognize that what you are is already that, is already whole, already complete. No thing needs to be added because it can't. Nothing can be taken away. Because there's nothing. This is everything. This is it entirely, wholly, infinitely, absolutely. It's all this. It's all complete. Nothing else can be added to it. Nothing can be taken away. Where would it go? This is not an anti-checklist rant. To-do lists, task lists, they're useful in the play of life to get things done. But it is a pointer to the fact that the mind will continue to come up with these if we look to them for confirmation of, or put some goal on the horizon stating that when they are checked off, when they are complete, then wholeness will arrive. If you want to look at it that way, there is one thing on the list, and that is to be, and you've got it. You've checked it off. You're done. There's nothing else required. You're already whole. You've already checked it off. It's done. Just be. This is all you need. Now, right now, is all you ever need.